Right. Okay.
We're on. Well, good evening,
on.
everyone. What a pleasure to see some familiar faces here with me, and what a pleasure to welcome you to another session of Fine Wine Club. We are in March, and I remember the last time we had a live Fine Wine Club with our angels. It was 6 months ago. I can tell you, it only feels a week, right? so I'm especially excited about this one for different reasons. One, and the first one again is to spend some time with you guys. The second one is we have, and I shouldn't say that because I don't have any favorites, amongst my winemakers, but two of our, most cherished winemakers joining us from New Zealand, Nikki Parish, who's thank you so much, Nikki, for staying up. She was just telling us that she's been harvesting, picking Chardonnay this morning at 7 a.m. And what time is it at your place now, Nikki?
9:30. Yeah. So 2 hours.
Well, there you go. So you've had a long day. So thank you so much for joining us. And our other incredible guest, you might have recognized him already, or because you read, his title. Daryl, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. We are so pleased to have you.
Antoine, I'm happy to be here and to have a lovely glass of wine with all these angels.
Excellent, thank you. And we are absolutely lucky because it turns out that Daryl was in Australia, obviously to take care of harvesting some of his incredible wines. And we just got, I guess, the last window before he jumps on his flight back to the US. So thank you so much, Daryl, for joining us tonight. It's a privilege to have you.
Yep. Well, again, I'm happy to be here, and I just lovely that I actually timed being over here right when all my grapes were being picked, and I could be out there, not driving the harvester, but I like to be out there and have a look and certainly be in the winery. But yeah, we've been furiously picking Sauvignon Blanc and Shiraz the last few days, and then some of the angels will know that I do a Zinfandel Shiraz blend from our Barossa Valley vineyard, and we will be picking the Zinfandel on the weekend going into next week. So an early harvest and getting it all wrapped up, which is good too.
Fantastic to hear. And I'm sure some of us might have tried many wines from Nikki and Daryl. I remember not a long time ago, we've had one of your wines, Daryl, from the US. So and we're going to have a few more wines actually coming from the US. We have your incredible Chardonnay, and a little preview. In the next Fine Wine Club case, you will have the incredible Pinot Noir, the little sister or the young brother, I should say, from Daryl's wine in the Russian River Valley. So we're really, really excited about that.
I'm actually really excited you've got both wines, because the Chardonnay is phenomenal, but the Pinot Noir was just up for the best red wine in the Naked USA, and it's all sold out over there. So you have a nice allocation. I didn't win the best red because the Angels got it wrong this time, but but I was there.
We will. Epic. That's an amazing news. Well done, Daryl.
Vicky's rolling her eyes.
Who won? Anyway.
The brothers' wine won, I think.
All right, that's the one. Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, I see. Well, and what's actually amazing, and thank you, Nikki and Daryl. You've started harvest, or you're in the middle of, I mean, I know, Daryl, you've picked a few wines already. What we might do is to leave some questions, about the harvest, to later on. What I'm going to do now for our angels and our Fine Wine Club members is to briefly introduce the four other wines that you've had in this really nice pack. And honestly, Em and I, we had a lot of fun putting this pack together. I'll start with what I consider to be a staple, what I consider to be an absolute necessity when it comes to conviviality and to starting a meal, but not only a meal. It's all about having a a nice moment together. This is our champagne. Jean-Philippe Moulin, the champagne, the non-vintage Brut. We featured the vintage a few cases ago, but I had the pleasure to discover that new Brut again, not only a few weeks ago. What a champagne! It's what I really enjoyed about this champagne. So this is a non-vintage. It's the base year is 2021. It's been aged for at least 30 months on lees, so with it on its yeast to give it that nice depth, that nice complexity. What I really appreciated about this champagne, it's and you will taste this. This is not only a good champagne for aperitif, it's a fantastic champagne to be paired with some food. One of the main reasons why is it's mostly made with Pinot Noir, and Pinot Noir in champagne give it that body, that structure, and also this kind of fruity element that makes it an incredible wine to pair with some food. So I hope you'll enjoy this, as I said, as an aperitif, but goes very well with a cheese platter. Try it with some fish, try it with some seafood. This is an absolute banger of a champagne. Jean-Philippe, as you know, has been the cellar master for Ruinart, for Mumm, and Baron Philippe Rothschild, just to name a few. So he's an absolute winemaker legend, you know, in Champagne. And you can see that craft here, a champagne that's really well balanced. Now we're going to leave France and we're going to come back to Australia, and I'll introduce to you the next two wines that are coming from the Barossa. We're spoiled with choice, you know, we, amongst our incredible winemakers who are doing a fantastic job in the Barossa. Someone who's, I guess, the epitome of, you know, all naked winemakers. Stu Bourne was able to make what is called, you know, in these small batch trials, a Graciano. And for some of you, Graciano is you might even think about Grenache, but it does nothing to deal with Grenache. Graciano is an incredible varietal that's mostly planted in Spain, and in one of the most I guess one of the best areas to plant red wine in Spain. It's the Rioja. They're making fantastic wines over there, which can age for decades, really. And Graciano is all about, you know, subtle tannins, lovely red fruits, and lovely spiciness into this. And expect the exact same thing here with the Formen and Hachette Graciano 2022. So a wine that has been bottled 2 years ago. Fantastic, you know, wine to be paired with some lamb, for instance. It's a lovely alternative if you love Cabernet, for instance, or if you love, you know, some big red blends from the Barossa. It's a grapes that we see increasingly planted in Southeast Australia because it resists very well to heat. For the third wine in that pack, we're going to stay in the Barossa, and I'm super happy to feature this wine for you guys. This is a wine from Josh Pfeiffer. Tread Lightly, that's the name of his brand, but it's also, I guess, his philosophy when it comes to winemaking. Sorry, very minimum intervention, and this is what you get in all his wines. Josh, even though he's using, you know, Shiraz, Cabernet, Grenache, and so on, it's never in your face, and this is what I love about his wine. It's this elegance. The wines are pretty subtle with a nice level of details into them. So this is coming from a single vineyard. Josh was basically, you know, born and raised in one of the Penfolds vineyards in the Barossa. His family has been making wine for more than 60 years over there. So expect something not necessarily conventional when you think about, you know, Barossa Shiraz, but a wine that's very well balanced, and I'm sure you appreciate the very light touch of Josh here. And finally, we're going to stay in South Australia, but we're going to move from the Barossa a little down south to McLaren Vale. And this is a bit unusual to have this winemaker. So John Corvin and Dan Binet, who are making the wines together as a pair, Mont Valley is a winery that's based in the Hunter. But in 2022, as you might recall, it was a very, very tough year in the Hunter for reds and especially for Shiraz. John has always had a love, I would say, relationship with Macallan Vale. And when he knew he wasn't able to produce a Shiraz from a red wine, from the Hunter, he turned himself, towards, Macallan Vale, and they were able to source amazing fruit from the Macallan Vale back in 2022 and do this incredible blend of Cabernet and Shiraz. I've tested the wine again with Emily and the team. It was no later than 3 weeks ago. And what a wine! It's what I love, especially in this wine, is the balance, in between Cabernet, where you can expect again lovely tannins, this sort of cigar box aromas, this lovely dark chocolate finish, and this touch of Shiraz that brings a little bit of juiciness into this. The wine lasts for minutes in your palate. And again, this is an amazing wine to go with, any type of Italian dishes, with some red meat and so on. So a lovely combination of different wines here in this Fine Wine Club edition. But now, good opportunity for me, and if you haven't done it already, feel free to pour yourself a little glass of wine, and I would recommend you to start with the Pinot Gris from Nikki, because we're going to start with yourself, Nikki. This Pinot Gris that I recall, it was, I think, 4 months ago when I first tested this. This has become straight away my pick of the month when it comes to the wine that I've selected out of the panel. I just need to tell you that as well, so that you're not jealous as well, Daryl. But your Chardonnay was my pick of the month last month. So this way, I'll make everyone happy. And Emily, you can keep me honest here, but those I'm excited tonight, because this is again not only featuring 2 incredible winemakers, but I love that we're focusing tonight on 2 white wines. I personally love white wine a little better than I prefer. I prefer white wines over red wines. I love the scope of aromas that white wines can provide you, and I think there is such a difference in terms, obviously, of all the varietals, all the GIs, but within each varietal. When you taste, for instance, Chardonnay from Adelaide Hills, you taste Chardonnay from the Yarra, and then you have the opportunity to taste Chardonnay from the US. This is I'm traveling already, and so should you. Same thing with Pinot Gris. Pinot Grigio, it's basically the same grape that has been harvested, at different times. But when you taste Pinot Gris from where it's commonly known as where it's coming from, Alsace, and then when you taste Nikki's Pinot Gris here, there's an incredible resemblance in some aspects, but also a pretty nice diversity there. And I think this is what wine is all about. And I think the 2 wines we're going to taste tonight are very good examples of that. So without further ado, Nikki, I'm going to ask you to, first introduce yourself. What I love about Nikki, is that this is a family story. We've had the chance to welcome you for a staff training the other day. You've blessed us with incredible stories. So maybe you want to start with this, and then naturally, I guess, lead us into this absolutely outstanding Pinot Gris.
Oh, thank you so much for the kind words. It's awesome. It's awesome to make this wine for you guys. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at this thing, so I'm
you so are.
You are really good. You're really good, Nikki, and do it the way you want, really. So it's really I guess an opportunity to speak about yourself and I guess why you're here, the way it all started with Naked, and why do you love these wines, or making wine overall. I think that's a good start.
Oh, thank you. So we've been making wine with Naked for nearly over 10 years now. So it's been an amazing ride. So it started out with Dad and I. making a little bit of Pinot Noir, like 300 cases back in 2012. So we've come a long way. We're making Pinot, Chardonnay, Rosé of Pinot, some Sauvignon Blanc, and of course, our Pinot Gris. So we've got a diverse portfolio, and it's been amazing. It's enabled, I don't know, my winemaking to really develop over the time. And I think as you mature, your winemaking skills mature as well. And I think I've probably grown up from when I started, and I was quite nervous and didn't really know what I was going to do and what would work well with the Angels. So I've taken a lot of feedback on board. I read everyone's comments. I really take it in, and I try and learn from that. I'm also really lucky. I've got my father, who I've worked with for the last 10 years, and he's been an amazing source of resource, especially in viticulture. And then I've got my brother Matt, who's in the US, who works with Daryl, and he's also been very instrumental into the success of our wines. So it's a family show, and we've just been really lucky and blessed to have the opportunity, and never want to let that down, really. So that's us. We're a small family wine company, and that's just how I'd like to be. So we produce only for Naked. We're in all 3 markets, but Australia is probably our strongest market. And we've been with them for like 11 years. So yeah, so it's been a ride, and just, yeah, may it continue. So our Pinot Gris, stylistically, has changed over time. So our first release was into the US in 2015, and it was really quite overripe, high alcohol, high RS, kind of thinking that was kind of what the US Angels would look like. It was a complete flop, right? And then so we went back to the drawing board, and we're like, okay, let's just have a look at stylistically what's going to work. And we really played to our strengths with the acidity, and making sure that the balance between the acidity and the RS, or residual sugar, was really, really working within itself. Keeping the alcohol content down, so picking it not at 24 brix, which I think is what, 13.5 Beaumet, would that be right?
Yep.
And so picking it just slightly a little bit earlier with a little bit more acidity. And that's really helped shape the style and the structure of our wine. And yeah, it's given me really good confidence over time. So this wine here was grown in 2023, and it was an amazing season in the end. It started off absolutely rubbish. I thought, oh gosh, we've got another 22, it's going to rain. Yeah, the world is falling. I can never make wine in these sort of, it's just terrible. Like white wine and rain does not go well. Not actually red wine either, but particularly whites, aromatics. No, it doesn't work out very well. So it rained pretty much all summer until March. And we had like these, what were they called? They were like rain rivers coming through New Zealand, like took out the whole North Island, the Hawke's Bay, poor Rod, he was taken, like it was just dramatic, right? It was a dramatic season. Anyway, then El Nino struck in March, and it was glorious. The sun came out. We nearly hit 30 degrees for the first time. And it was beautiful. And it just meant that harvest, I've never seen so many winemakers walking around smiling before, which is quite unusual on harvest. Normally we're quite gruff and a little bit stressed, and lots of people are asking us lots of questions, and we're trying to organize lots of different moving parts. So you do get a bit growly quite quickly. And anywho, so last vintage was amazing. And what happened was the fruit ripened really quite slowly, but over a long time. And it really allowed the flavors to develop. And the acidity was still there. It wasn't too hot. And it just meant, it was just magic. So we picked when we wanted to. There was no sort of, like New Zealand, it does rain a lot, right? Like it's cool. It's very cool. It just rains, it's coastal, long, skinny island, lots of rain. Anyway, so the resulting wine is 13.78% alcohol. The pH TA is 3.74 and 4 grams per litre. Sorry, I'm a numbers person. And the RES, normally I had around 4 grams, but I went a bit lower this year and I went 3.5, just because I just thought the balance was better. And I was really lucky because my brother was coming to visit at the same time in May, so he came and helped me blend. So I was really quite lucky, and it helped. That helps a lot as well. Like having people to bounce ideas off, I really love that. Yeah, so that's sort of like lots of pears. So I've got lots of notes next to me. We've got lots of pears, citrus, and a little bit figgy, and then just really, I really focus on the texture. So we use a couple of yeasts, CH7 and 58W3, which the CH7 gives the mouthfeel and the weight to the wine, and then I feel that 58W3 brings the spicy sort of nuances.
I've got to jump in with a question here because I love how you rattle off numbers and I get lost sometimes, but you pull us all back to what it all means, which is great. But I wanted to talk to you about the choice you made to use 2 different yeasts for the reasons that you just said, to give different characteristics. Is that a common thing? Like, do a lot of winemakers use different types
Absolutely.
of yeast?
Yeah.
Or like, is it directed between particular varietals to actually do that?
Oh, so like today I went to the winery and got a printout of what yeasts were available, you know, just what they've got. And there's probably like 100 yeasts on the list that you can choose from. People are very particular, and you jump in here too, Daryl, like people are quite particular about their yeast as well. Like, obviously there's yeast for certain varieties that you would use, like you wouldn't use, say, 58W3 on a Pinot Noir, like, because it's not going to capture what's in the Pinot, like it's designed for aromatic sort of Gewürztraminer and, you know, Albarenos and things like that. So, yeah, so it is, yeah, but it's definitely like how you hone your craft, right? Like that, and there's always a new yeast on the block and everyone's using it, and it's all very, you know, last year it was Maxithiol, the year before that it was FTH, you know, there's the hit yeast, especially in Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, because that's what we do. Yeah, and I just wanted to touch a little bit about North Canterbury. Like, it's a really small place. So North Canterbury is about 1,000 hectares, which is about 2 vineyards in Marlborough, and I don't know what that compares to the Barossa, but I would imagine it's like tiny, like a couple of estates. Yeah. But it's small, right? So, and but it's really cute, and the people are lovely. And like, I talked to the harvest driver today. There's one harvest company, and I said, "Oh, can you slot me in for maybe next week or the week after?" He's like, "Whatever you need," you know, like really, it's really humble and lovely and just really nice people. So it's small. The crop levels are smaller. And what's really good about it is part of the Canterbury Plains. The Canterbury Plains used to be like really sheep and beef farming, really arid. There wasn't a lot of cropping that was sustainable. And so what it does, it's protected by the Southern Alps, and it's just hot during the summer and really hot days, but really cold nights. And that's what gives our wine the flavor that we get. So, it keeps the acidity. Our malics are sort of kept a little bit higher, which can be a nuisance sometimes, but quite good other times. And it just means that it brings a lot of freshness, and it also helps the flavors develop quite slowly. And then the other good thing about it is that it has this massive wind, right? So like, it rains on the west coast and this wind comes right down the Southern Alps. Get your washing dry within an hour. It's amazing. Like, it's annoying, but it's amazing. So it's a really cool little sort of valley in the middle of nowhere. It's about an hour north of Christchurch, an hour and a half of, yeah, sorry, probably half an hour from Kaikoura. So if you know the South Island at all, it's 3 hours from Marlborough. Yeah, so it's in the middle of nowhere. So this one is really special. So this is a little block. I think it was probably 3 hectares, cropping at 8 tons per hectare. So it's tiny, yeah, and just in the middle of nowhere. So yeah. I hope you
But
enjoy.
what an amazing wine, Nikki. Honestly, I'm just sipping it. It's actually pretty dangerous, guys. I hope I'll make it until the end of the session. But you've said it, Nikki. What really sort of strikes me is the freshness one, but that texture. And I think this is truly a wine I would recommend. For instance, Chardonnay lovers to taste, because most of them would have tried. I mean, let's face it. You would have a much larger choice when it comes to Pinot Grigio rather than Pinot Gris in the market. So most of you might have tried Pinot Grigio before. This is what Pinot Gris is all about. This is really about this texture, this balance between acidity and these lovely, aromas that you've said there, the pear, the white flowers, and so on. So I have a question for you, Nikki. Is what would be the best dish you would pair that wine with? And I know this is pretty versatile, and there are many combinations. But I love food pairings, and I think I'd love to hear from you, the specialist.
Oh, I don't know. Like, I'm pretty a traditionalist. Like, like a lovely roast chicken, like a butterfly chicken on the barbecue with a salad, and like just really simple flavors. I think you want the wine to shine here. You don't want to dominate it too much. So I think just even like a beautiful cheese platter, but like, yeah, a roast chicken is generally my go-to. I love it. It's so comforting. It's so warming, and yeah. So I'm not that adventurous. I usually have got too much going on, and I burn the eggs, or I burn, yeah. But anyway, you know what it's like when you got a young family, there's a lot going on, right? Yeah. So
I got a real life example just this evening of of pairing it with food, which kind of sings to what you're saying, Nikki, about simple flavors are probably better with this wine because there's a bit going on. We just made I guess it's like you empty the fridge Spanish style stew. You got chorizo, you got cherry tomatoes, and
yum.
lots of spices in there. It's awesome. But probably the thing that sung the most in the wine was the acidity, which is great because it just dances along and it has a little party, but you don't get to experience all of the other awesome flavors that are going on in there. So nice to know we just need to cook a humble chook and we can enjoy this wine with it.
Simple's best, right? Like, yeah, absolutely.
I also wanted to ask temperature of the wine to drink, right? Because it's quite complex. There's a lot of flavors going on there. So a recommendation, you want to have it between 8 to 10 degrees. What's the general rule? Like, how do we get to that 8 to 10 degrees? We know the degree of our fridge, but I'm not sticking a thermometer in my bottle of wine. So how do I know that I'm getting it at the right temperature? Is there a timing thing there, or?
I think,
What is it?
if you pick up the glass and it's really too cold to handle, I think it's a way. Like, unless it's like a jump into, Dara, if you feel if I'm wrong. But I think if you've got a really cold Sauvignon Blanc, yeah, chill it right down, because sometimes that helps. But sorry. But if you've got some aromatics, you want the temperature not to be too cold, because you do want them to release. So the colder the wine is, the less aromatics you're going to get. So I generally drink mine probably about 10 to 12 degrees. I'm not overly fussy, but then it's quite cold in New Zealand, so you don't really need a super cold wine. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's a really hot day and you've got a warm wine, then
yeah. So if you're having it like 10 degrees, you've got it in the fridge overnight, say, so it's hit like 3 degrees. Are you pulling it out 20 minutes before you're drinking it, or
probably? Yeah. But then I say, like, it's not that cold here, so like it's not going to warm up too fast. You know what I mean? Like Aussie, it's a lot warmer, right?
Cool.
It's probably about 3 degrees outside. There was frost on my car on Saturday morning when I went to give them grape samples. Okay, so that's how
No way! Oh wow!
What?
Ridiculous. Yeah.
At harvest time. Wow.
I know.
Crazy.
No, that's awesome. I just wanted to share a personal experience on speaking about wine pairing and food pairing. Pinot Gris, and if you want to keep it simple as well, goes amazingly well with a lot of Asian type of dishes with spices. And when you said chorizo. And Emma was like, yeah, maybe that's another twist on it, but with Asian type of dishes. And you know what? Another amazing pairing as well with Pinot Gris is with green curry. Green
Oh, yeah.
curry, fish curry, and you have the balance between the acidity and the sugar there. Nikki, I don't know if you've tried that before, but that's absolutely spectacular.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But I'm just not very good at cooking those sort of foods. So yeah, I normally either too much curry paste or yeah.
Don't
A lot
worry
going
about
on.
curry paste. Whatever you can find, and Jamie Oliver is really good at that, Nikki. Just making it very, very simple. Believe me, I'm not making my curry paste by myself. But it's a match in heaven, honestly. And what a pleasure to try this wine again. I have another question, Nikki, and that will probably be the last for you. But I can see David Bowie behind you.
Oh, I know someone else
Is that him?
mentioned that in the staff thing. Yeah, because Jen's a huge fan. So my husband's a fan, and I found it and I framed it for him. So yeah, it's actually
Epic.
it's
So I was
actually
wondering
vinyl. Yeah,
epic.
an old
Epic. I was
vinyl.
wondering which song of David would you have this wine with?
Oh, I'm not that big a fan,
That's a tricky one.
but I'll ask Jen next time I see her. But, yeah.
Epic. Nikki, is there maybe quickly just before we move to Daryl, do you want to give us a quick snapshot on how's the 2024 harvest going?
Yeah, so it's looking really lovely. Like we've had a really hot summer. Like we've had 30 degrees most days, which is just really unusual for us. So we kind of didn't know what to do because we've never had that kind of heat in a row. Like you normally have like 2 or 3 days of hot and then like a big southerly comes through and cools everything down and rain and but it's been glorious. El Nino has been amazing for us. So it's the vintage to look out for. The crops are lower because we didn't have great flowering, so our crops are lower, but they're ripening really nicely. And so I think I'll be starting with some Pinot Gris and some Pinot Noir in a couple of weeks from White Prayer, and then followed by some Sauv. So still a couple of weeks away down there, but in Marlborough we're very, very into it. Yep, so there's a lot going on. Yeah, lots of fruit coming in, many trucks of Sauv. So yeah, all looking really amazing. Like it's gonna be epic.
Fantastic. Really, really good to hear. Fantastic. Well, Nikki, thank you so much once again for sharing all these amazing stories, and thank you especially for making this just incredible wine. Yeah, we don't hesitate, guys. We have a little chat there. Please throw in some comments, throw in some questions, and we'll probably with Emily, read them as they come, or after. Well, I guess the part of Daryl. Daryl, we are so pleased to have you. Thank you once again for joining us. I've told myself and I've not often do I go in my cupboard and open and find a glass for a nice creamy Chardonnay, but I thought if I don't do that today, there's no point having those glasses. And I have to say, it's something for you guys as well. Glassware is just really, really important as well. It's all about attention to details. And Daryl, Nikki, I'm sure you'll agree with me. The same wine, really doesn't taste, the same way, in different glassware. And if you have the right glassware with the right wine, it's really about a little bit like a food pairing, right? So it's really about a match in heaven. And in a large glass like this that's really open, I think the wine really, really shines. So Daryl, the floor is yours. I mean, I'm sure people have read many times your story, but for those who don't, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us why you're still passionate after all these years in wine, and then maybe a good segue is to tell us about this incredible Chardonnay from the Russian River Valley you've made for us.
Yeah, well, thanks, Antoine. And I'm really pleased that I can get one of my Californian wines into Australian Angels' hands. I know a lot of the Angels that have been with Naked for a long time have tasted my Australian wines, but it's really great to have the Californian wines here, and that's a chore getting wine from California into Australia, and I'm really happy to share it. I have been with Naked Wines, like Nikki. I think I'm in that handful of winemakers that have been with Naked Wines for me now 11 years. And I got into it in 2012, 2013 because of Rowan and because of Nikki's brother, Matt Parrish, who we'd done some winemaking together, and he reached out and at a perfect timing for me and said, I think you'll be perfect for Naked Wines. And I just fell in love with it and have loved it for all those years and continue to do so. Probably the question for a lot of Angels is, he's an Australian, he makes Australian wine, he's got Californian wine. How does that work, and why? And because I'm unique to Naked, I don't know any other winemaker that makes wines in 2 different countries, but I make wine in California and I make wine in Australia. I split my time, and my wines, Australian and Californian wines, are sold in Australia, in the USA, and in the UK. So wind back the clock, how does this come about? So early on in my career, I was the assistant white winemaker straight out of college for a winery called Kaiserstuhl that some people may not have heard of, but Angels that are sort of my age probably know of Kaiserstuhl. They were in the Barossa Valley and were known for making really great value wines. And I became their assistant white winemaker when I was 22, coming out of Roseworthy College. A year later, the head white winemaker left the company, and the chief winemaker came and said, Daryl, we've really been watching what you've been doing. We are not going to hire another head winemaker. We're going to give you a chance to have that position and sort of prove us wrong, that you don't deserve it. So I took on the senior white winemaking position at 23 years of age with a large cooperative winery in the Barossa Valley. A year later, Penfolds were the winery next door, and they purchased us. Penfolds were very strong in red wines, but back, this is 1983 now, so whatever that is, back 40 years ago, they were really strong in red wines, but didn't make a lot of white wines. So when the 2 companies came together, Penfolds said, we're going to take over all of the Kaiserstuhl red wine making, but Daryl, we would love you to be the senior white winemaker of the whole company. So at 24 years of age, I was the senior white winemaker for Penfolds. Not really realizing at the time what that meant, just a young gung-ho winemaker, wanted to get my hands dirty, wanted to make great wines, and wanted to be around other great winemakers, which Penfolds had. A couple of years later, the head red winemaker from Penfolds decided to move on to another company, and Penfolds came and said, hey, Daryl, this is 1985. I'm 26 years of age, and they said, we'd like to make you the red winemaker of Penfolds. And so I shifted from white wines to red wines. But as a winemaker, all of that, you roll in. I had some really great mentors in Max Schubert and Don Ditter and John Bird. So it was an easy roll in, and, here I was making all of the Penfolds red wines. And Penfolds were doing really well as a company. In fact, my pride and joy back from those days was when I first took over the red wine making at Penfolds, Max Schubert, the founder of Penfolds Grange, said, Daryl, hey, the legacy's yours, sort of thing, to look after the wines. And he gave me a bottle of 1951 Grange, which was the first Grange. He gave me that in 1980, the end of 1985. I still have that bottle of wine. And all I thought of was just a memento from Max, which I want to keep. I never thought of as value. But the last auction price for that bottle of wine, which I still have, is $150,000. I'm not sure what I'm going
Wow.
to do with it. It's sitting in a bank vault in Adelaide in an underground cellar. But anyway, Penfolds were being really successful as a company, and they wanted to expand. They wanted to sell wines in the USA market. And the best way to do that, they wanted a footprint there. So they bought a 50% share of a winery called Geyser Peak. And Penfolds said, Daryl, we want you to move to California. We want you to evolve our new winery. We know you're the right person to do so, but then you have to come back in 2 years' time. So I moved to California with my wife and took over the winemaking job at Geyser Peak. Geyser Peak was a bit of a challenge. Behind circles, it was actually known as Geyser Puke. So we had to change that. So we set about putting all of the techniques that I'd learned at Penfolds into Geyser Peak. And in 2 years' time, we were named by the LA Times as Winemakers of the Year. And we went on to win about 8 Winemaker of the Year awards. So when all of that happens as a winemaker, Penfolds were saying, come back to the Barossa Valley. And all of my wines were still in barrel that got better every year. And it's like, well, I have to stay. So I stayed on in California, split my ties with Penfolds because eventually they sold the company and decided to stay in California, and went on my winemaking career. 3 years later, we were sold to Jim Beam. So I actually ran their wine division and all of their winemaking for about 5 years. And making some wonderful wines. But with each progression, I sort of grew away from day-to-day winemaking. So towards the end of my corporate career, I was looking after 12 different wineries. I was the head winemaker, but I wasn't getting my hands dirty making wine, which is what my passion truly was. At the same time, my only son and 4th child was going through back-to-back heart surgeries. And this is around about 2007. And we went through a really challenging time in our life. And I decided to jump out of corporate winemaking and spend time with my son, Colby, as he went through back-to-back open heart surgeries. It was a tough decision, but one of the best decisions that I ever made from a family perspective, and then how it turned out. So I went on trying to make my own wine, which was called Groom Wine. And we have vineyards. We planted vineyards back in Australia. Angels get to share and enjoy my Barossa Valley Shiraz and Zinfandel Shiraz. We have vineyards in the Adelaide Hills. But before Naked, it was really tough to sell wine, and it was tough to want to spend time with my son and my daughters as well, but it was really tough to sell wine. So Nikki's brother Matt and Rowan came to me at a perfect time. I was sort of out of corporate life, making Shiraz and Zinfandel and Sauvignon Blanc under my own label. I had started a label with my 11-year-old son to give back to heart charities. We named a wine after him, called Colby Red. And we started with that, with making 500 cases of wine, hoping to raise a few $1,000s. We ended up raising $2 million from the sale of that wine, but that didn't pay the family bills because we gave away all the profits from the wine. So when Rowan and Matt Parrish came to me and said, Daryl, do you want to be a naked winemaker? It was like, yes, absolutely. This sounds really good. What? You bring all these angels that I just get to make wine, and they get to enjoy the wines that I do, and I don't have to spend my time sort of on the road and doing a whole lot and trying to sell wine. So I've loved that. So I make wine in California for Naked Wines. I have a range of wines from an Alexander Valley Cabernet, Russian River Chardonnay, Russian River Pinot, Dry Creek Zinfandel, and I have a lot of fun. Naked have also let me do a similar wine to my Colby Red called Wine with Heart. And I partner with Naked in the United States, and we've now raised about $200 and something thousand from angels helping us with a red blend. And as I said before, I still make my wines back in Australia, and I go back and forth. But the wine that the angels have tonight, and it is in the Fine Wine Club, is my 2021 Russian River Chardonnay. First of all, 2021 was a big sigh of relief and a fantastic vintage. Those that follow what goes on in the United States and California, we came off of 2020 vintage, which was pretty devastating bushfires all through the region. In fact, they were lapping on our property about a half a mile away, and I've got lots of friends and all of our road. I think we lost about 100 houses and properties, but it happened right in the start of harvest in August. So 2020 was probably the most challenging vintage I've probably ever had in my life, from a climatic, a smoke potential taint, but also an emotional roller coaster. So as winemakers in California, we were all looking for that. Give us something good in 2021, and we absolutely got it. And that's why the wine you've got is so good in that glass that you're going to really enjoy it. The 2021 vintage was a dryish year. We had rains in the winter period in Australia, which is, in California, which is November, December. We had good rains that saturated the ground, but the rest of the season was really dry. The crops were really light, but we didn't get the excessive heat. So the grapes, where 2020 we were all scrambling to pick early and not have the smoke taint, 2021, it was a winemaker's delight. We could pick the grapes at optimum maturity, what we wanted. It was just a perfect vintage. This wine comes from an area called the Russian River. For Australians that don't know much about Californian winemaking, I live in an area north of San Francisco, so it's Northern California. In that area, we have around about 6 different counties that make wine: Sonoma County, Napa County, Mendocino, Lake County, and each of those counties have wine regions. So I'm in Sonoma County. Probably the 2 most premium regions in California are Sonoma, and everyone knows Napa. So in Sonoma County, they divide the county up, and we have 19 different appellations, specific wine regions. Some you would have heard of: Alexander Valley, Dry Creek Valley, Chalk Hill, Sonoma Valley, Sonoma Mountain. And they are geographic regions that are made up because of climatic conditions that suit that region. So the most well-known regions are Alexander Valley, Dry Creek, and Russian River. Russian River is further in Sonoma County, is further south towards San Francisco. So if you were driving north of San Francisco, Russian River would be probably the first appellation that you'd come to. Russian River is most known and sought after with winemakers in California because it's a very cool climate, sort of like Yarra Valley, sort of like the Adelaide Hills. So it's well suited to cooler climate grapes. So the 3 biggest grape varieties in Russian River would be Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Sauvignon Blanc. When I first went to California, they were like the early Australians. Chardonnay styles were big, alcoholic, full of butter. They were big, creamy, in-your-face styles. And what we saw is that consumers and winemakers wanted to make styles that were more pleasurable to drink. And Russian River, with its coolness of climate, offered the perfect conditions for making a little bit more elegant, but still very stylistic and high quality Chardonnay, as you have in the glass of the DRG now. What makes Russian River unique and sought after for winemakers is what people know as the San Francisco fog. If you ever go to San Francisco and you go across the Golden Gate Bridge at night, the fog freezes you. Everybody knows that, you know, and old Mark Twain saying was the coldest winter I ever spent was summer in San Francisco. So what happens in the Russian River wine growing region, there's a river that comes from the ocean called the Russian River. And what happens is during the day, California has hot, warm temperatures. So 38 degrees Celsius, or I took Fahrenheit these days. I've got to go back and forth, but 100-degree days. And you've got this cold ocean because the Russian River butts up onto the Pacific Ocean. Got this very cold ocean and very cold water. And what happens is from the water, you get the fog starts to occur over the top of the ocean. And you get this big fog layer sitting out on the ocean. Nobody sees it until later on in the day. And the hot temperatures start to cause the air to rise. And then the fog gets dragged in along the Russian River. And it will come in and cover all of the vineyards overnight. And the Russian River has probably we call it a diurnal temperature fluctuation. So the Russian River during daytime can be 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and overnight it'll drop to 45 degrees. So we get this huge temperature fluctuation, which is really good for ripening the grapes because you've got the heat to ripen the grapes, and then you've got the coolness that cools it off and maintains all the acidity. But we have to be very careful with growing grapes there. We put them in what we call a vertical shoot position. So we don't let the grapes if I was a grapevine, we don't just let them sit like this. We get the shoots up really high, and that allows airflow into the canopy to help ripen the grapes and doesn't create any rot. So this particular Chardonnay, where I talked before, when I first went to California, there was big in-your-face Chardonnays. Well, what we want now is we want deliciousness. We just want really great wines that have all of the elements of Chardonnay, but there's none of them that's really sticking out and annoying you. So when you try this wine, you're going to get this, you're going to get some melon and tropical characters that come from the fruit. This has now a little bit of age, so they'll start to be going back in a little bit. You get some beautiful citrus characters as well because of the coolness of the wine growing region. Get some creaminess in that particular wine because we do what we call sur-lie and stir the lees in the barrel to create that creamy texture which we want. And then the hallmark of a great Chardonnay often is a sort of butteriness and caramelness and smokiness. So that comes from the barrel ferment. And I put this wine through a partial malolactic fermentation, which for angels that don't know, conversion from malic acid to lactic acid, that's not ultra important, but the byproduct is diacetyl, which is butter. So that's where you get a little bit of butteriness in the Chardonnay. So what I want is all of these components all in together, but just all in balance and all in harmony. This particular wine comes from 4 different vineyards. I'm not as winemakers, we don't make hardly any money, so I can't afford a winery in California. So I'm blessed with having a lot of connections and really good friends. So this particular wine, while I make it 2 different wineries, one at Susie Selby's place, who's one of the pioneering lady winemakers, and another portion I make from my neighbor's vineyard, the Orsi vineyard. I actually make in Francis Ford Coppola's winery, which is the Geyser Peak Winery. They bought it many years ago. So I'm sort of at home in that winery. I'll leave it to any question because I think I've waffled on.
What a story. Daryl, thank you so much for, I guess, sharing this wealth of knowledge. You've mentioned harmony. I don't think there's a better word, to describe that wine.
Yeah.
And today, I don't know if you know, we are Harmony Day.
Yeah.
It's
Well
all of it.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, we're connecting the dots and so on. I've had the opportunity to live and work with wine in the US. And whenever you are drinking a Chardonnay from the US, I'm always a bit mindful and I'm always a bit scared because I feel like, I'm gonna get, big croissant, full of butter and so on. And Em will tell you there, when I first tasted this wine, I was just so amazed by, as you said, the balance with the acidity. You get all the right, character of this incredible Chardonnay with the texture. You can feel the lees there and so on. But yet the acidity is absolutely incredible, and how clean the fruit is. And I think you mentioned an incredible vintage back in the days, but I think 2021. I think this is what you get here. So fabulous wine. Would you say, Daryl, it has a potential to age a little bit?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Of all the Chardonnays that are made in California, Russian River is known to have Chardonnays that age particularly well. You can go 10, 15 years, much as you can with the classic Burgundy. I like the wine at the age it is now. As a winemaker, I like that balance of fruit and age, but Angels can really appreciate this wine if they keep it for 10 years. It'll be gorgeous. But we all drink our wines, a lot sort of on the younger side. But it's really funny what you said, or not funny, it's what you said, Antoine, about the acidity and everything. That's exactly what we love about Russian River. And it's why it's overtaken all the other wine regions in California as the premier region for growing Chardonnay.
Yeah, and again, Russian River. For those who love Chardonnay from different places, I mean, that can compare with some Premier Cru Burgundy. Without any issues. One thing I mentioned, and you've heard it from Daryl himself: get yourself a 12-pack, of this wine, because they're going to sell fast. I can tell you, we didn't bring much. But one thing I've noticed as well, Daryl, is that you're using a Diam cork, I believe,
Yes.
for this wine. So obviously cork, it's a little bit, harder to extract, but with Diam cork, it basically reduces the risk of having TCA and cork taint. So and allows for me, this extra breathing that makes the wine even more delicious when it ages. So I think it's a genuine asset, for this wine. Em, is there anything else you wanted to? I know you love this wine as well.
I love this wine, and I think the one thing I would say is, Angels, don't attack this like a Chardonnay from the Adelaide Hills, because gee, the alcohol's high. Which
Probably about right.
I just have to say that for the record. But it didn't really click for me until you just said before why that is. And yeah, really awesome to have something that has the ripeness, but also has that pure elegance and acidity. And I mean, I've had this open since about 6:30, to be honest with you. I had it, I thought I'd test it with dinner with the Mexican chorizo, see how it'd go. Anyway, probably better with something a bit more humble, like some chicken, I would think, because there's so much going on. And like Nikki's wine, you really want to see all those characters and taste it and feel it in your mouth. So you don't want it to go with some Mexican spices, I don't think. But the point is that it's been open for 2 hours. It's still tasting awesome. And I feel like I'm getting a new characteristics and new flavors every time I take a sip. So definitely don't have this crisp cold, Angels, is what I would say.
Hey, I've got a couple of questions because I'm like the biggest Chardonnay nerd in the world. So, what are your favorite barrels and what are your favorite yeasts?
Here we go.
Look, they vary depending on the vintage of where I'm making my wines. I'm probably an old school winemaker, and you mentioned about yeast before. There are so many yeasts out there today. I'm always, and now my daughter's got her own label, and she's 30, and I'm making wines with her, and she wants to do all things natural and not have yeast, and so it's sort of re-challenging me. I have all of this fun with her. but I see yeast adds so much, but I see winemakers get into trouble sometimes having yeasts that don't go to full fermentation, because you're starting to pick a yeast that you want to get the maximized aromatics, but the yeast actually doesn't do well when you start getting the alcohol content up. So you know, I tend to try and stick with a sure fermenter yeast and try and make sure I've got better fruit and optimum conditions, rather than sort of play around with too many different yeasts. Yeah.
Oh no, it's just I need to choose some yeast tomorrow, so I
Yeah.
just thought I'd ask.
I'm a
So there we go.
Well, and I'm a Demtos and Siga Moreau French oak, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ah,
That's,
yeah.
and that's what I dealt with Penfolds, and in Australia, AP Johns, because that's what Grange barrels always went in, and yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Guys, I'm enjoying that so much, because I personally would love one day to make my own wine. So for me, this is just a masterclass on how to make wine with two of the best winemakers we have at Naked. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, Daryl and Nikki. This is absolutely priceless.
Thank you.
That's great, guys. We're about time, and I feel terrible, because you know I would have loved, you know, for us to stay a bit longer and so on. What a conversation, what a wealth of knowledge that we've had the chance to experience. The wines, I think they speak for themselves. And what I really enjoy with your story as well, Daryl, is and what comes up in maybe one word is hope. Is, you know, you've been through all those challenging time, and same thing for you, I guess, Nikki. You've experienced some ups and downs. There's a whole family coming up.
Yeah, keep
And,
going.
there you go. Hello everyone. Hello everyone. And I think through your stories today, I think, you know, we need to share that with you, Angels, but you probably know, you know, it's tough time for the winemakers out there. It's tough time for growers, and thanks to you, thanks to your support, you know, we're able to contribute, you know, a little bit on, you know, with our stories to help, you know, them out. So thank you very much
Oh, thank you.
to all of you. Thank you, Nikki, for staying up, you know, this late with us. Thank you so much, Daryl, for your stories, for this, I guess, message of hope. Enjoy the rest of your night in Sydney. Good luck with your flight back. Sorry, go ahead, Daryl.
So this is my grandchildren, my wife and my grandchildren. So they're having their first international trip to Sydney.
Oh,
And so they're waiting for me to go to the swimming pool and play Marco Polo.
Well, we're going to let you do that.
But they have a winery in Dry Creek Valley in California called Ciene, and they do a little bit of wines for Naked. And this is Angelo and Nina, and they both have a wine named after them.
Oh,
Oh, lucky you.
that's
Ah.
awesome.
Yep. So
Angelo's paintbrush, right?
Angelo's paintbrush and
And
Nina.
Valentina Marie.
Yep.
Nina, yeah.
So anyway,
Epic.
so I get to do the
Okay.
pleasure with all the angels and drink the wine, and family time's most important, as we know.
Yeah. That's
guys,
lovely.
can I take a
Fantastic.
quick
It is.
screenshot of tonight?
Great. Well,
All
thank
look
you.
beautiful.
Go
on the
ahead.
screen. Can we all do a screenshot? Big smiles if you've got a glass in your hand. Nice and high. Woo!
Oh, I haven't got. You should come over, Laura.
Nice. That's great. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you guys. Take care.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you,
right,
Angels.
thank
you.
See you around. Thank
And
you
a
for
big
support.
thank you to all the angels out there, and
Yeah.
enjoy the wine. So just thanks for what angels do, because it allows us to make wine, doesn't it, Nikki, and have fun and smile.
Right.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Bye,
Thank you
guys.
so much,
Bye.
guys. See you soon.
Bye. Bye.